So this is another Stuff I Own, and in this case we have Batman from the Justice League, as played by Ben Affleck. And I think you can kind of tell, even though most of his face is hidden under the cowl, that looks like Ben Affleck's jaw, and I think it looks very realistic. He was an DC has had a very hard time with casting, and it's not for lack of talent in the actors and actresses. It's other things. And so, if you'll indulge me for just a minute, Ben Affleck would have been around 44 when he was first cast as Batman, maybe 43. But when the Batman versus Superman came out, I believe he was 44. You could compare that to Robert Pattinson, who was 35 when he first appeared as Batman. George Clooney was 36. Christian Bale was 31. I don't know why you would start trying to build a shared universe with a Batman who was already 44. That's why when they cast a new James Bond, he's generally in his 30s because you want some longevity out of it. And it didn't work out very well, unfortunately. And it wasn't necessarily because of his age. He had some substance abuse problems, Ben Affleck, and decided to drop out. My understanding was that the Batman movie was going to feature Ben Affleck, and then instead they went with Bruce Pattinson. And this was outside of the DC universe. So you would never see any of the other superhero characters in it, which I don't know that was necessarily a bad idea. But yeah, I think he's fine. It's just Ben Affleck, he's kind of let himself go. He's a beefy guy, and they kind of, show that off there, thick in the waist. And I don't necessarily mind kind of the late in career Dark Knight. But it does look a little weird during some of the CGI scenes where he's moving super fast. It really doesn't lend itself well to. I think that I would have stuck with him using power moves because he's so large. Ben Affleck is just a beefy guy at this point. The costume, it's very interesting, and so they went super super black on this, and you can barely tell the Batman logo on here. It is a huge logo, but you can barely see it, and that probably is accurate to the movie. The belt here is a separate piece, and this is all kind of a rubber material over the figure. So, I think it looks pretty cool. I also showed earlier the tactical suit Batman, which I think looks super super cool. This is kind of plain, but it looks pretty cool in here. It looks very. This fold in here is legit. That's not, so I can kind of push on it. There's no metal on here, even though maybe some of the parts look like they could be metal. No metal. The boots look pretty cool. The cape is very nice. I like this fabric. For whatever reason, Hot Toys uses different fabrics depending on the Batman, and this one I think is one of the better ones. It's kind of a heavier cape. The worst one was, I believe, the tactical suit Batman because for whatever reason the fabric started sticking together. It has not had the problem on this one, and it kind of damaged the fabric a little bit. But I think that overall it is a good interpretation. You got the molded muscles in there and everything. But I believe with this helmet or this head, that you can remove the head and actually move the eyeballs around if you really want to. So he can be looking in different directions. It's hard to even see his eyes, though, because they're so in shadow. But I think that looks like Ben Affleck's mouth. That's a pretty good interpretation. Or I think it's a very good interpretation. It's just a rather plain costume, probably not one of their better ones. I think a lot of the other Batman movies who get a little more elaborate, particularly with obvious armoring on the suit, this one is kind of plain. And again, it's so dark, so uniformly dark that you can barely see the Batman logo on there. It almost looks like, I swear, it almost looks like sweat dripping down. I don't know. Some in here. Maybe not. Maybe it's just my imagination. But I mean, it's not. There's no liquid on it or no moisture on this. But that is the last of my Justice League. I did not get Aquaman or Cyborg because I didn't care to get. I just didn't like the way they looked. So not that I didn't like the characters, I just didn't like the way they looked. So opted not to get them. But anyway, this is Batman from Justice League by Hot Toys. Is played by Ben Affleck.